and Michelle are unsportsmanlike.
The Celtics are once again the winningest franchise in the history of the NBA. The 2024 NBA champions.
All the ups and downs, the losses, the heartbreaks all led to this moment.
We did it! Boston Celtics winning championship number 18. Jason Tatum imitating Kevin Garnett with different words. The "we did it" was anything is possible. Same kind of moment there last night as Boston closes it out. You heard it here with Mark Hessisher, PJ Carlissimo, and George Sedano on ESPN Radio. Another champion will try to be crowned tonight. 2024 Stanley Cup Final continues. Panthers and the Oilers. Coverage begins Game 5, 7 p.m. Eastern, ESPN2 and ESPN Plus with the point. Then catch the game on ABC, ESPN Plus, ESPN Deportes with the puck scheduled to drop shortly after 8 p.m. Eastern. Couple of quick hits on the Celtics. I want quick answers on this. If I gave you next 5 years, you could have one guy running your team, Brad Stevens or Danny Ainge?
Brad Stevens.
I think I'd go Brad Stevens as well.
Okay, next 5 years, you could have one guy coaching your team. Ime Udoka, Joe Mazzulla, or Brad Stevens?
Ime Udoka.
I think I'd go Brad Stevens.
You'd take Brad Stevens on both.
Well, I was going back and forth between Ime Udoka and Brad Stevens, and my first thought was Ime Udoka, but obviously there's history there, so I think I'd go Brad Stevens.
But think about this as a whole.
I thought we were history aside. I thought it was history aside.
Yeah, just do the basketball part.
But then Ime Udoka.
Yeah.
And that's no disrespect to Brad Stevens, but Ime Udoka is an incredible coach.
He's an amazing coach.
So neither of you mentioned the actual guy that won a championship.
Yeah.
So he's third of the three Celtic coaches in this run. He's the worst coach of the three? Do you want to put Will Hardy above him too? The assistant coach now with the Jazz
I ain't
head
framing
coach?
it that way. I mean, I'm not going to do that. I don't want to disparage Joe Mazzulla because he again.
You mean again?
Well, yeah, that part. But listen, he showed us growth from last year to this year, right? He grew into the job, and sometimes that happens when you're not prepared for it, right? The Ime Udoka of it all was very abrupt, and so for him to step in at his age, at this point in his career, and have those types of expectations, there's a learning curve to it. I will give him credit. He adjusted. You saw some growth when it came to his overall schemes. You saw some growth when it came to the use of his timeouts. Even last night, when you had instances where the Dallas Mavs, got the lead under 20, got it to 18, got it to 17, you saw him take a timeout for his team to gather themselves, as Jaylen Brown put it, to reassemble, and then they'd come back out and they'd continue to dominate. So I think knowing your team, having a pulse and a feel for the game, I think he's done that a lot better in this season than he did last year, and that's where I will give him credit for this championship run. But that's where it stops for me.
That's where it stops.
No doubt.
I also think he deserves credit for keeping everyone in that team first mentality all the time. And obviously the players deserve credit for adopting that and carrying it through the season. But with all the noise about Tatum versus Brown and can they get it done, the entire season, the messaging has been, we are a team. It doesn't matter what I do personally. I will put my ego aside and do certain things for my team as long as it results in a championship. I mean, Derek White last night was asked about Joe Mazzulla in the postgame, and he got emotional, saying he means everything to him. I think from a chemistry standpoint and from a culture standpoint, Joe Mazzulla has been great for the Boston Celtics.
But think about this. Do you remember a run in any sport over the course of 6 or 7 years? Because they've had a run, but it's one title, right?
Yep.
Where you can have legit debates. Listen to what I'm saying on this. As to who the best player has been, Tatum or Brown, who the best coach has been, Stevens, Udoka, or Mazzulla, and who the best GM has been, Ainge or Stevens. Normally, your Yankees. Joe Torre was the manager the entire time. Brian Cashman, outside of the first year with Bob Watson, was the general manager the entire time. Derek Jeter was unquestioned leader, maybe not best player, but leader the entire time.
Yeah.
Right? Like, he was the face.
The captain.
There's no debate. Andy Reid is the best coach. Patrick Mahomes is the best player. And Brent Veach / John Dorsey previously, okay, whatever. There's no debate. There's no debate in the Patriots run. It's Brady and Belichick. You can legitimately debate who the best player is, who the best coach is, and who the best executive is within this 6 or 7 year run.
But see, that's why I always go back to the common denominator of Tatum and Brown, because those are the guys that have been there. Like, it's just like amidst all the change within the organization, head coaches, personnel-wise around Tatum and Brown, guys that are on the team, and then with the front office, those guys being able to weather the storm, being able to adjust, being malleable, being willing to listen and grow, both as players and as leaders, I think they're the ones that deserve the most credit for this championship. I mean, I guess when it comes to winning titles, we always want to credit the best players. But in this instance, I think we have to acknowledge the mental toughness of those guys amidst the criticism, amidst the expectations that they had. And here's the other thing, knowing the weight of that jersey. It's not like you're playing for any franchise. This ain't the Minnesota Timberwolves. No disrespect, this ain't the Denver Nuggets. This is the Boston Celtics. This is one of the standard bearers in the NBA. This
in all of sports.
This is a flagship franchise. I mean, think about the history. I mean, Bill Russell, Larry Bird, Havlicek. I mean, you got all-time greats, guys that are top 10 in the sports history. The damn finals MVP trophy is named after Bill Russell. The conference final trophy is named after Larry Bird. Like, that's the franchise that you're playing for. And to not wilt under that pressure on this stage, with the stakes being as high as they were this season, knowing what the offseason holds for this franchise, I think those guys deserve a tremendous amount of credit today. And I got to say this, it was an awesome scene last night after they won the chip. You got the confetti falling down and Jason Tatum with Deuce right there hugging his son. Like, that is one of the memorable moments. Like, I go back to Drew Brees when he won the championship against the Colts and he's holding his son and he's got the earmuffs on his son because of the noise. I go back to Tom Brady throwing the Lombardi trophy on the boat parade that the Tampa Bay Bucks had. Like, that Kevin Garnett, anything is possible. Like, those are iconic moments. Last night we got that with Jason Tatum and his son Deuce. And you could see pure joy in that instance, and it was the weight of the world being lifted off of that young man's shoulders. And I could not be happier for everybody for the Celtics, but specifically for Jason Tatum and Jaylen Brown.
So how would we categorize this postseason in general? Celtics go 16-3. They don't beat a team that has more than 50 wins. Was this a good postseason for the NBA in your minds?
It was anticlimactic. I got to say it.
But isn't that a compliment to the Celtics? With Nantucket Smalls over there wearing the green?
I don't think it's a compliment when you have the conference finals matchups being so one-sided. I don't think it's a compliment when you have the NBA finals being so lopsided. I mean, I thought we had more theater in the earlier rounds of the postseason than in the last two rounds. And like any good story, like any good TV show, you want the suspense to build. You want the drama to build. And in this movie, it just fell flat. So credit to the Boston Celtics for being as dominant as they were, but from an entertainment value standpoint, it left a little something to be desired.
It was devoid of star power because so many stars got injured.
But is that a knock? Now, are you now knocking the Celtics?
Not at all, because they were the best team during the regular season. They were dominant during the playoffs. I'm not knocking them at all. I'm just saying from a consumer standpoint, when you have so many big names that aren't there in the middle of competition, it's not as exciting.
Boston was amazing, though. They dominated everyone. Is this the start or the end? We'll find out next on Sportsman Live.